The October air carried a sharpness, the kind that made every breath feel like a small ghost slipping into your lungs. Leaves scuttled across the pavement, brittle and restless, as if the trees were whispering secrets to one another. Down the block, children in costumes darted from house to house, their laughter rising and falling like a song the wind itself wanted to hum. But not every house invited them. On one porch, the light was burned out. No cheerful pumpkins lined the steps, no orange glow to guide the way. Just a single door, dark and closed, holding its silence. Most of the children hurried past it, skipping toward brighter porches, the ones with bowls of candy waiting. But one small boy slowed. He stared at the shadowed doorway as though it were more than wood and hinges. His plastic sword drooped in his hand, his shoulders pulled tight. He whispered to the taller kids, "I'm not going there. It looks too scary." And something about that moment caught in my chest. Because haven't we all stood before a door like that? Not a Halloween door, not even one with a porch light out, but a door in our own lives. A job posting we never applied for, a conversation we never started, a love we never confessed, a truth we never named. We told ourselves the same story that boy whispered. "I'm not going there. It looks too scary." And so we turned away, convincing ourselves it was safer to keep walking. The trouble is, those doors never really disappear. They linger in memory, heavy and unknocked, waiting. And we carry them like weights in the chest. Tonight, though, standing at the edge of that yard, I noticed something else. A small jack-o'-lantern sat near the steps. Its candle flame wobbled in the breeze, sometimes nearly vanishing, then flaring back to life. It was so faint you might miss it, and yet it was there, stubborn, steady, insistent. That pumpkin felt like a symbol. Fear is loud, it pushes us back, but hope often flickers quietly. It doesn't shout. Meta, pause. Sex, it just waits, glowing, daring us to notice. I thought of the words I had read once, words that rattled through my bones even now. Every truth passes through the night of fear before it can be seen in daylight. What if this dark porch, avoided by all, was exactly the place where truth could be found? What if the scariest doors in our lives are hiding the very sweetness we've been searching for? There is something strange about fear. It shows up wearing masks, like Halloween monsters. But beneath the disguise, it often hides something tender, freedom, growth, love. We run from the costume, but the gift remains inside, waiting for us to knock. As I stood there, I found myself caught between the boy's hesitation and the glow of the pumpkin. I understood both. The trembling voice that says, "Stay away," the flicker of light that whispers, "Come closer." And maybe that's what fear really is, the tension between those two voices. One loud, one quiet, one pulling you back, one daring you forward. So let me ask you, as kindly as I can, what door have you been walking past? What step have you been too afraid to take? What truth has been left unknocked in the night? It's okay if you don't answer right away. It's okay if your heart beats faster even at the thought. Fear does that. But remember, the door is still waiting, and so is the light. The children's laughter swelled again down the block, the sound of joy and courage disguised as play. The boy tightened his grip on his sword, looked once more at the shadowed porch, then ran after the others. His choice was his own. But me, I stayed a moment longer, watching the little pumpkin's flame. It seemed to breathe with me, a reminder that even in the darkest night, light can live quietly, patiently, inside the fear. And the question lingered, as sharp and soft as the autumn air. What if the very door you fear most holds the thing you've been waiting for? The house with the dark door slipped out of sight as I walked on, but it did not leave me. It followed in memory, the way certain silences follow you long after a conversation has ended. The boy's words, "I'm too scared to knock," replayed in my chest until they began to sound like my own. Because I know that voice. You do too, don't you? It's the voice that shows up in the quiet of morning when you hover over a job application and then close the window. It's the voice that stops you from dialing the number you've memorized. The one belonging to the person you miss but haven't spoken to in years. It's the voice that keeps your truth locked inside your ribs, whispering that silence is safer than rejection, that staying small is easier than being seen. Fear promises protection, but more often it cages us. I've walked past many doors in my life. I told myself I was being practical, that timing wasn't right, that one day I would circle back. But the truth is simpler and harder. I was afraid of being told no, afraid of not being enough, afraid that once the door opened, I wouldn't know how to walk through. And so I stayed outside. I convinced myself the porch was safer than what lay beyond. But safety has its own cost. When you choose not to knock, you still choose. Only now the choice is absence. Absence of opportunity, absence of growth, absence of love. And slowly, absence begins to pile up inside you until your chest feels crowded with shadows. I think about the Halloween masks people wear. Witches, skeletons, monsters. We laugh at them because we know they're disguises. But in life, our masks are harder to name. We put on the mask of competence at work while crumbling inside. The mask of indifference when someone's absence cuts too deeply. The mask of busyness when we're really lonely. These masks, like the dark Halloween porch, promise safety. But they also keep us from connection, from sweetness, from truth. And the contradiction is sharp. We long for change, but we avoid it. We ache for closeness, but we hide. We crave freedom, but we cling to the cage we know. I told myself for years that not trying kept me safe. But what it really kept me was stuck. Stuck outside doors that could have opened. Stuck in jobs that dulled me. Stuck in patterns that repeated like a haunted refrain. There is a quiet grief in that kind of stuckness. It's not loud like heartbreak. It's slow, steady, invisible. It wears you down, one silent choice at a time. Maybe you know this feeling too. That sense of drifting through your own life like a guest, present but unclaimed. On Halloween night, the children run with joy because they believe there is candy behind every door. They don't question whether they're worthy of it. They don't worry about being enough. They just knock. And in that knock lives both their fear and their courage. When did we forget how to do that? When did we trade the boldness of a child's knock for the silence of pretending not to care? I don't have an easy answer. I only know that the longer I listened to fear, the more it sounded like truth. And the more I obeyed it, the smaller my life became. There's a strange thing about fear. It always claims to be protecting you, but really it is protecting itself. Fear is not interested in your growth. It is only interested in survival. And sometimes survival means staying in the dark, never learning what sweetness waits on the other side. But here's the tender truth I keep returning to. The very places I avoided, the conversations I didn't start, the risks I didn't take, they still live inside me as unfinished chapters. And perhaps the pain I feel now isn't just fear. Perhaps it's longing. Longing for the life that could have been. If only I had knocked. So when I think of that boy's whisper, I'm too scared to knock. I don't hear a child anymore. I hear us, the adults who stand in front of our own doors every day.
It's obvious that because of the Fazadori.
And the question presses in, heavier with every step. How many more doors will I walk past before I decide to stop being stuck? The street had grown quieter as the night stretched on. Some children had already filled their buckets and gone home, their voices fading into the distance. But a small cluster lingered near that darkened porch, whispering among themselves. The burned-out light above the door made the house look abandoned, though the faint flicker of the jack-o'-lantern candle proved otherwise. One boy in a pirate hat shuffled forward, sword dragging against the steps. He stopped just shy of the doormat. His friends held their breath. Then he whispered it again, words I couldn't shake. "I'm too scared to knock." The group laughed nervously, tugging him back towards safer porches, brighter lights, doors that promised reward without risk. But I stayed fixed, as though those words had been spoken directly to me, because suddenly I saw it all too clearly. That was my life. How many times had I been that boy, pausing just inches from the door of possibility? How many times had I whispered some version of, "I'm too scared," into the hollow of my own chest? I thought of the job I once longed for but never applied to, convinced they'd laugh at my audacity. I thought of the apology left unsent because pride pretended it was unnecessary. I thought of love unspoken, the way silence builds a wall that grows higher with every passing year. And it struck me with the force of cold October air. If I keep living this way, I will vanish into my own fear. Not all at once, but slowly, like light leaking out of a candle until only smoke remains. That realization cracked something in me. It wasn't dramatic, not like the climax of a movie. It was quieter, more unsettling. The knowledge that comfort itself was costing me everything. Safety had become its own kind of haunted house. I thought I was avoiding pain, but what I was really avoiding was life. The unknocked door became unbearable to look at, not because of what might be hiding behind it, but because of what I would never know if I kept walking past.
And here's the strangest part. It wasn't the fear itself that scared me anymore. It was the thought of wasting what time I had left, circling through the same dark streets, always skipping the door that mattered most. Schopenhauer's words pulsed like the candle flame in that jack-o'-lantern. Every truth passes through the night of fear before it can be seen in daylight. If he was right, then every door I avoided was a truth I was denying myself. It wasn't rejection that would break me. It was regret. The boy tugged at his pirate hat, still staring at the door. I wanted to crouch down beside him and say, "You don't have to be fearless. You just have to knock once. Even a shaky knock counts." But I didn't speak. I only listened, because I realized I wasn't just watching his hesitation. I was watching my own reflection. And in that mirror moment, the choice became simple, though not easy. Keep living outside my own doors, or finally raise my hand and knock. Not tomorrow, not someday, tonight. Fear had always convinced me there would be more time. But the truth is, time is the one thing fear cannot promise. So I stood there with the wind curling around my coat, leaves rattling like bones on the pavement, and I asked myself the question I had avoided for years. If not now, when? The boy turned and ran to join his friends, laughter chasing away his hesitation. But I lingered. My hand twitched, as if rehearsing the gesture of a knock. Just once. Just enough to remind myself that I was still here, still capable of choosing. And the symbol of that dark Halloween door settled into my chest like a seed. It wasn't about candy. It wasn't even about the porch. It was about the 1,000 doors in my life I had left unopened, and the truth that if I didn't change, I would spend the rest of my years outside, peering in, forever wondering what sweetness I had missed. The cost of fear was no longer invisible. It was standing right in front of me. The night had grown heavier, as if the sky itself were leaning closer. The wind rattled the branches, and the jack-o'-lantern's flames shivered, threatening to vanish with every gust. That small flicker became the only pulse of life on the porch, a fragile reminder that someone had cared enough to light it. I stood before the door, every part of me rehearsing the old excuses. It's safer not to try. It doesn't matter. Someone else will go first. But deep inside, those words rang hollow. They weren't comfort anymore. They were chains. Schopenhauer's line returned like a whisper from the dark.
Every truth passes through the night of fear before it can be seen in daylight. Fear wasn't a mistake. Fear wasn't even the enemy. Fear was the corridor, and if I wanted to step into truth, I had to walk through it. The boy had already run off, but his absence left me with a sharper choice. No one was watching. There would be no applause, no laughter, no validation. Only the simple act itself. Lift your hand and knock. It sounds small, doesn't it? Just a few knuckles against wood. But my heart beat so loudly it felt as if the whole block could hear. That's the strange weight of fear. The smallest acts feel enormous when they break old patterns. I breathed in the October cold, steadying myself. My hand rose, trembling, hesitant. For a second I froze again, the urge to retreat screaming louder than the wind. But then I thought, if I walk away now, I am choosing absence again, and absence has already taken enough from me. So I knocked. Once. The sound was soft, hollow, almost swallowed by the wind. Yet it was real. My hand had met the door. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was alive, humming with the truth that I had finally acted. Fear had not disappeared. My chest still pounded. My palms still prickled with sweat. But something subtle shifted. The fear was no longer a wall. It had become a doorway, and I was standing inside it.
Here is what I learned in that moment. Courage does not erase fear. It walks with it. The act of knocking did not make me fearless. It made me free. Because for the first time, I realized the cost of inaction had been heavier than the cost of trying. The waiting, the avoiding, the circling, all of it had stolen more life than any rejection could. And isn't that the truth Schopenhauer pointed toward? That we cannot reach clarity without first moving through darkness. That the night of fear is not detour, but passage. The door didn't open right away. Maybe no one was home. Maybe nothing would happen at all. But that wasn't the point anymore. The point was that I had knocked, and that small act changed everything. It reminded me that I wasn't powerless, that even in the presence of fear, I could still choose, and choice is its own kind of light. I stepped back, staring at the jack-o'-lantern. Its flame wavered, then steadied again, as if nodding in agreement. For years I had mistaken fear as a signal to stop. Tonight, it revealed itself as a signal to begin. And though the street was still dark, though the air still chilled, I felt something dawn quietly inside me. Not daylight yet, but the promise of it. Because the first knock had already broken the silence. And once broken, silence cannot hold you in the same way again. So I whispered into the night, maybe to myself, maybe to whoever might be listening behind the door. Fear isn't the end of the path. It is the path. And with that, I turned, lighter than when I'd arrived. Not because the fear was gone, but because I had finally moved through it. The street stretched quiet now. Most porch lights dimmed, candy bowls emptied. Only a few jack-o'-lanterns remained lit, their faces softened by the late hour, their flames burning lower but still alive. The night carried that hush that comes when a celebration begins to close, when joy has been scattered and what's left are traces. Rappers on sidewalks, echoes of laughter, footprints in fallen leaves. And I thought again of that door, not just as wood and hinges on a single porch, but as a mirror of something larger. Every one of us has a Halloween door we walk past. Some are painted like opportunities, some like confessions, some like dreams, all of them guarded by fear. Fear, I realized, is not unique to me. It belongs to us all. It lives in every family, every office, every friendship, every heart. Some hide it well, some announce it loudly, but none of us escape it. And maybe that's not failure. Maybe that's what makes us human. Schopenhauer's words came back, not as philosophy, but as simple fact. Every truth passes through the night of fear
before it can be seen in daylight. Fear is not the problem. Refusing to pass through it is. And so, as I walked home beneath the thin light of the moon, I began to see the flickering pumpkins as teachers. They burned low but steady, fragile yet stubborn, each one a reminder that courage does not roar, it glows, and it glows most clearly in the dark. But the lesson is only alive if we carry it into our own days. Fear may never vanish, but we can walk with it, and the way to walk is simple, one small step at a time. So let me offer you a few gentle doors you can knock on this week. Write it down. Take a blank page tonight and name the door you've been avoiding. Is it a call you've delayed? A truth you haven't spoken? A risk you haven't taken? Fear thrives in silence. Writing it down drags it into daylight. Take one action. Don't aim for the whole leap. Aim for the smallest possible knock. Send the text. Open the application. Whisper the first line of what you need to say. The action can be tiny, even trembling. What matters is that it exists. Breathe before retreat. Fear will try to push you back. When it rises, pause. 3 slow breaths. Feel the air enter. Feel it leave. In that pause, you remind yourself, I am still here, and I still have choice. Offer thanks. Gratitude is its own kind of door. Knock on it daily. Say thank you to someone who held the door open for you, literally or figuratively. Gratitude reminds you that you are not alone, that others walk their corridors of fear too. These are not grand gestures. They are pocket actions, small enough to carry in your hand, strong enough to shift the heart. Because here's the diamond line I want you to remember. The night of fear shortens once you take the first step into it. It does not vanish, but it changes shape. What felt like a monster becomes a corridor. What felt like a cage becomes a path. And the more you walk, the more you learn that fear was never the end. It was always the passageway. On Halloween, children run from door to door, knocking without guarantees, trusting that sweetness waits. Perhaps the truest lesson is not in the costumes or candy, but in that trust. They do not need certainty to knock. They only need the courage of the moment. And maybe that's what we're invited to reclaim. Not the absence of fear, but the courage to knock anyway. So tonight, as the pumpkins flicker lower and the wind scatters the last of the leaves, let the image linger with you. A dark door, a trembling hand, a single knock. That is enough. Because each knock, no matter how small, is a declaration. I am still here. I am still choosing. I will not live outside my own life. And that choice, yours, mine, ours, is what turns the night of fear into the first light of truth. The night was almost over. The streetlights hummed quietly, casting pale halos on the pavement. The laughter of children had faded into memory, leaving only the sound of leaves tumbling along the curb. The neighborhood, once alive with footsteps and costumes, now seemed to hold its breath. I found myself once more before that porch, the one with the burned-out light, the one most had passed by. The jack-o'-lantern's flame still flickered, though faintly, like the heartbeat of the house itself. And in its glow, I felt the circle of the evening closing. The boy's whisper echoed back to me. I'm too scared to knock. Only now it no longer felt like defeat. It felt like an invitation. An honest acknowledgement of where we all begin. Because every act of courage starts there. In the tremble, in the hesitation, in the silence before the knock. I thought of all the doors I had walked past in my life. And then I thought of the one small knock I had given tonight. The way it had changed something inside me. Not the world, not the outcome, just me. And maybe that is enough. Because transformation doesn't always come with trumpets. Sometimes it comes with a single sound. Knuckles against wood in the dark. And isn't that what Schopenhauer meant? That truth is not handed to us in the safety of daylight. It asks us to pass through the night of fear. It asks us to risk, to tremble, to act. Only then does daylight arrive. The door before me creaked suddenly, just slightly. A shift in the wood, or perhaps the wind pressing against it. But in that sound I heard something deeper. The reminder that doors are not built to remain forever closed. I imagined, for a moment, the child finally stepping forward, raising his small fist and giving the gentlest knock. The door opening, laughter spilling out, candy dropped into waiting hands. The sweetness not in the sugar, but in the courage it took to ask. And in that image, I saw us all. Adults in costumes of competence.
Walking streets lined with hidden doors, too often convincing ourselves to keep moving, to avoid the one threshold that matters. Yet always longing, always glancing back at the porch we did not dare approach. So here is the truth, tender and unpolished. The door will not knock itself, and no one else can knock it for you. But you can. Even if your hand shakes, even if your voice trembles, even if all you manage is one soft rap in the dark. Because one knock is enough to break the silence. One knock is enough to remind you that you are not powerless. One knock is enough to begin. So I ask you now, as you listen in the hush of your own room, with your own unknocked doors lingering in memory, which door will you choose tonight? Not tomorrow, not when you feel braver. Tonight, one small action. Send the message, draft the email, speak the truth aloud even to yourself. That is your knock. And when you do, remember the jack-o'-lantern. Its flame wavered, but it did not go out. It waited, stubborn, in the dark. That light is in you too. You do not need to be fearless. You only need to be willing. So let this be the lingering image. A dark Halloween porch, a trembling hand, a single knock. The flame flickers, the door creaks, the night breathes. And as you turn back toward your own life, carry this diamond line with you. Fear is not the wall that stops you. It is the doorway that leads you home.